Hello and a warm welcome to all of you. In this video, we are going to talk about the 7-day strategy to TISSNET. I'm sure all the TISSNET aspirants are excited and looking forward to how you can use your time constructively over the next 7 days and maximize your score. So in this video, we will talk about the paper pattern. We will also look at the cutoff. We will also talk about how do you strategize for each of the sections and for your entire group. So let's get started. Now, in terms of paper pattern, there hasn't been any change. The TISSNET pattern has remained more or less the same over the last several years. And you will see that apart from changes in the difficulty, and those are also very minor changes, you haven't really seen any change on the paper pattern. Now, you have 3 sections, starting with the English proficiency, mathematical and logical reasoning, and the GK section. There are 30 questions in each of English as well as math, and there are 40 questions on the GK section. Now, there is no sectional time limit that you have for TISSNET, which means you can solve sections in whatever order that you want to, and you can jump from one question to another or one section to another. There's no sectional cutoff for English and math, but for GK, there is a sectional cutoff. And what is that sectional cutoff? If you're a general EWS, KM, or AF category student, then it is 14 marks out of 40. If you are NC, OBC, and PWD, the cutoff is 12 marks. And if you're SC, ST, then there is no cutoff applicable for the GK section. So overall, you have 100 minutes and you have to solve 100 questions in that particular time. Now, if we talk about the cutoffs for the HRM, the flagship HRM program, the cutoff has ranged between 72 to 75 marks in the past. So if you're somebody who is aiming for the main HRM program, that is the target that you will have to keep in mind. I will also leave a link in the description where you can find the actual cutoffs of last year for all the programs across categories. I'm sure you're going to find that link useful. Now let's talk about the question distribution in each of the sections in the last year. So if you look at the English proficiency section, there were 10 questions out of 30 in the form of RC. There were 2 passages, not very difficult to read. And if you're prepared for other exams, or if you've just been focusing on TISSNET, I'm sure you will be able to manage this. 8 questions appeared from the fill in the blanks area, and these were of different kinds. So you have questions related to spellings, questions related to a single blank or multiple blanks. Grammar also is a significant part of TISSNET. So you have 4 questions on it, which are largely spot the error based. Then the synonyms, antonyms, or vocab-based questions are also 4 in number. That was the number last year, and the number can change this year. So whatever you are seeing in terms of number of questions, that can change from year to year. I'm just showing you what happened last year. Parajumbles and critical reasoning, you had 2 questions each on these 2 areas. So overall, verbal section or the English proficiency section is not very difficult on the TISSNET. And in terms of time, you will typically not require more than 30 minutes to answer these 30 questions. The mathematical and logical reasoning section was dominated by arithmetic. So if you see the number of questions out of 30, you had only 7 questions from this area, which is combination of SICI, time and work, time, speed, distance, and so on. You also had questions on clocks and calendars. In terms of geometry, which is another significant area on the TISSNET, you had a total of 6 questions, mix of mensuration and quadrilateral based questions. From modern math, which is permutation, combination, probability, set theory, statistics, again, you had 6 questions, which is roughly about 20% of the paper or the quant section. Algebra, you had just 2 questions, and from numbers, you had 1 question last year. Of course, the distribution can change this time. However, one thing that has remained constant is the dominance of the arithmetic on the TISSNET. You had 4 questions on data interpretation, not very difficult to handle. If you're good at percentages, averages, and ratios, I'm sure all of you would be able to solve that particular set. And from logical reasoning, you had only 4 questions, 3 on completing the series and 1 on directions. Again, not very difficult to handle. However, last year, the mathematical and logical reasoning, overall, if you look at the difficulty, it was slightly more difficult compared to the previous year, which was 2020. So that was a change last year, but again, it wasn't major difference in difficulty, and that is why the cutoffs overall didn't really change much. Now let's talk about the biggest differentiator of TISSNET, which is the GK section. Because if you look at the VARC or the math section of TISSNET, you will see that it hasn't changed much in difficulty. And a lot of people, when they come back from the test, they are able to solve most of the questions. But in GK, either you know it or you don't. So there is a mix of static and current affairs question. So last year, the split was almost equal. And even in the previous years, it has been somewhere around 2018 or 2020. 10 questions can be categorized as easy, which appeared last year. 18 were about moderate and about 12 were difficult. Now, if you look at GK as a section, there is a whole lot of things to prepare. So in the next few slides, I will also talk about how you can prepare for GK in this short period that you have from now. So let's now focus on the test strategy. Now, the first thing that you need to keep in mind is play according to your strengths. As I said, there is no sectional time limit. You can move from one section to another freely. And when you have that opportunity, you have to start with your best section. So if you're somebody who is good at quant, please start with quant. If you are good at verbal, start with verbal. And then, of course, adjust depending on the difficulty of the test and so on. Secondly, don't panic if there are any changes in the difficulty. Please remember that if the paper is difficult for you, it is difficult for everybody else too. So the success is ultimately going to be relative. So if the paper comes difficult for some reason, automatically it will get reflected in the cutoffs. So you just have to do better relative to others. And that is why even if the difficulty changes a little bit, if there are any surprises, please don't panic. Thirdly, as there's no negative marking, make sure that you mark all the questions. So since there is complete absence of negative marking, you have to ensure that when you come out of that test hall, you have to mark every single question that appears on the paper. So just in case you are somebody who is going to take some bit of time to complete your paper, keep your last 5 minutes to mark questions randomly. Now, the suggested time distribution to approach TISSNET is roughly about 30 minutes on the English proficiency section. I'm sure that some of you will take even lesser time compared to this to do it. About 45 minutes for mathematical and logical reasoning. This is accounting the fact that it was slightly difficult last year, and that is why I've kept about 45 minutes. You can always make it 50 minutes as well. And 20 minutes on GK. Now, some of you must be thinking there are 40 questions on the GK. Why should I spend only 20 minutes on it? Is because it will not take you a lot of time to attempt GK. It's just reading a question and selecting the right option, which typically doesn't require a lot of critical thinking. A lot of it is going to be either you know it or you don't. And there is going to be some guessing that you are going to do based on the things that you have heard or read. And that is why it will not take you more than 20 minutes. So I would say 15, 20, 25. That's the duration that you need to keep. So based on the time that I have given, I think you can do a plus or minus 5 on all the sections and then adjust according to your strength. Do a mid-test review. Very, very important thing. So you have 100 minutes roughly when you're in the middle of the paper. If you have completed about 40 questions, 50 questions, just have a look at the timer, see if you have ample time to finish the rest of the paper. And lastly, if you are somebody who is able to finish your paper early, right? You have 100 minutes, let's say you are done in about 90 minutes or so, use that last minutes that you're going to have constructively, go through the entire paper, see if you have marked things correctly. Because sometimes in a hurry, especially if the paper is easy, we go with speed. And as part of that, we end up making some silly mistakes. So if you have some extra time left, please recheck your answers before the test duration gets over. So let's now talk about the plan for the next 7 days. Now, firstly, as we saw in quant, the dominant part is going to be arithmetic. Also, a lot of questions that appear on the TISSNET are direct formula-based questions. So rather than trying to solve a lot of difficult questions from limited set of areas, I would suggest that you have a look at formulae from all the topics. So if there are some topics that you have decided not to do because they seem difficult, at least having a command over the basic formula and the basic level of questions is going to help you to crack TISSNET. So make sure that you revise all the core concepts and the formula. Secondly, for the GK section, go through the current affairs of last 6 months. So GK, as we saw, is divided as static and current affairs. Static, of course, there's no limit to how much you can prepare. And we have some content that will help you there. But largely, your focus should be on current affairs because it is slightly limited in its scope. So look at current affairs of the last 6 months through GK zone on MyMS. Also have a look at the TISSNET specific GK and the GK compendium that we have, and take a lot of static and current affairs quizzes. Go through all the grammar rules. A lot of questions that you will see on the TISSNET are going to be based on grammar. Even whatever vocab that you can do in these next 7 days, please go ahead and do it. And of course, the RC practice goes without saying, because we saw that nearly 1/3 of your paper is going to be reading comprehension. So practice a lot of RCs and do your grammar rules properly. And lastly, very important thing, taking mocks. So though TISSNET might appear to be a very short duration test, it is going to be intense. You will need practice, and taking the mocks that are created by IMS will definitely help you. So take the TISSNET mocks, because it will help you understand your areas and your strengths and your areas of improvement. And it will help you to figure out what is going to be your own plan to crack the TISSNET. Also have a look at the video of the TISSNET analysis that we had made on the channel last year. I will put a link in the description. It will give you a sense of what exactly happened last year. I'm sure this video has helped you guys, and I wish all of you all the best. Make good use of the next 7 days that you have, and wish all the best for TISSNET. Thank you so much for watching. In case you're not subscribed to the channel, please do it immediately.